I get it. You've probably scrolled through a dozen fish finder listings, stared at glossy renders of bright screens and promise-filled bullet points, only to wonder if any of them will actually work when you drop a line in the water. The real frustration, though, is when you finally bring the unit home, strap it to the transom, and the awesome display turns out to be nothing more than a fuzzy blob that tells you nothing about where the fish are really hanging out. That's the exact problem I wanted to avoid when I started looking at the Lowrance Elite FS12 Active Imaging 3-in-1, so I did a deep dive, no pun intended, into the specs, the user community, and the practical day-to-day experience of people who actually use these things on small lakes, river runs, and coastal flats. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Elite FS12 isn't just a tiny 12-inch screen with a fancy logo. It's marketed as a re-Datafish device, which in practice means the hardware and software are preloaded to give you a usable picture right out of the box, no hunting for firmware updates or fiddling with calibration menus. In the field, that translates to a simple power on, drop the transducer, and you're looking at live sonar data within a few seconds. For a weekend fisherman who only goes out a few times a month, that frictionless start can be a big win compared to more feature-heavy units that require a learning curve before they become useful. What sets this model apart is the active imaging mode. Traditional downlooking sonar is great for depth, but it can lose fish that are near the bottom or hidden under structures. Active imaging sweeps the beam wider and gives a more detailed slice of what's directly in front of you, showing you individual fish silhouettes rather than just a bunch of dots. I saw a few YouTube demos where anglers on a shallow lake were able to spot crappie hanging under a submerged log and target them precisely, rather than guessing based on a vague echo. That kind of resolution is something you feel in the moment, because instead of casting blindly you get an almost X-ray view of the water column right in front of the boat. That said, the Elite FS12 isn't a universal solution. Its 12-inch screen, while big enough to read at a glance, can be a limiting factor if you're used to larger, multi-image displays that show charts and a full-screen sonar view side by side. If you're a serious offshore fisherman who wants to monitor several data points at once like water temperature, depth contours, and multiple fish arches, the single screen may feel cramped. The unit does let you toggle between imaging and standard sonar, but you lose the ability to have both displayed simultaneously. For a small boat or kayak setup, the compromise is often worth the trade-off. For a larger vessel with a full-size dashboard, you might end up reaching for a bigger unit. Another practical consideration is the connectivity. Lowrance promotes connected boat control, which means you can link the fish finder to a companion app on your phone or tablet. In real life, that connection is pretty stable on a calm day, but some users have reported occasional dropouts when they're moving quick through choppy water. The app does let you adjust settings, set waypoints, and even share your catch locations with friends, which is a neat social feature. If you like to keep all your data centralized and don't mind carrying an extra device, the connectivity adds value. If you're someone who prefers a simple, standalone unit with no extra hardware, you may find the extra steps unnecessary. Battery life is another hidden factor. The FS12 draws power from a typical 12-volt marine battery, and because it runs a fairly responsive display and active imaging processor, it can be a bit more demanding than a basic depth finder. On a standard 100 amp-hour battery, I've heard anglers getting about 5 to 6 hours of consistent use before they start seeing a dip in performance. If you're planning long-day trips on a small outboard or a battery-driven kayak, you'll want to keep an extra battery on hand. For short bursts like a quick morning run on a lake, it's hardly an issue. So, who should buy the Lowrance Elite FS12? Think of the dedicated weekend fisherman, the kayaker who wants to add a bit more science to his casts, or the small boat owner who values an easy toy install package that just works. The unit's quick start design, live sonar compatibility, and the ability to see individual fish in the active imaging mode make it a solid value for anyone who wants more certainty without diving into the higher price tier of professional-grade gear. If you spend most of your time on inland lakes, reservoirs, or calm coastal bays where you can benefit from the detailed imaging and you don't need a massive, multi-window dashboard, this model will likely exceed your expectations for the price. On the flip side, skip it if you're a serious offshore pursuer who demands a larger screen, wants to monitor multiple sonar layers at once, or